All right, for the Hatha Yoga practice, we're going to use a block and a strap. And we'll start in a seated position, comfortably sitting on your sit bones evenly. If you need a block or blanket to sit on, grab a block or blanket. If you need a different variation with your ankles, if you need to cross them or stack them differently, please do so. But take just a few moments here to gather your breath, soften your shoulders, move your head around, release your neck, face, and jaw. Breathe from your belly in and up and feel that breath root down into your sit bones even more on your mat. From that strong and stable rooting, you can feel the movement of your breath. You can feel the movement of your body because of your breath, expanding and softening. Inhale, reach your arms up. Exhale, take your right hand to the floor. Let it fall out a little farther away from your hips so you can lean over into a nice side bend here. Stretch your left arm overhead, press back down into your left hip, and look up under your left arm. Inhale, come back up to seated, and then reach your arms up on your next inhale. Split your left hand down to the floor, stretch it a little farther away from your hip, and reach over with your right arm. Then keep pressing back with your right hip, lengthen your right side, and look up under your right arm. You can also look down to your left thumb if that's easier for your neck. And then on your inhale, come back up to seated. Take a breath. And then twist off to your right. Take your left hand to your right thigh, right hand behind. A few rounds of breath here. Feeling your head lined up over your pelvis so that you're not leaning. And then inhale, come back to center. Catch a breath here, and you're going to switch off to the second side. Left hand behind, right hand to left thigh. And keep the breath moving at the same steady pace. Feeling the twist, feeling the stretch. Another big round of breath here. And then release, come back to seated. And catch your breath. One round here or two even, just to kind of center. And then we're going to come back over into hands and knees, tabletop pose. I'm going to skip the cat-cow and just do the cat. So I'm going to take my fingertips to the floor and press my back up to the ceiling. Really pressing the floor away with the fingertips and engaging your abdominals to press your back into a gentle round. Feel the stretch on your back muscles as you breathe here. In and out of your nose. Same breath, different shape. Left leg out to the side and come up to kneeling on your right knee and left heel. Reach your right arm up overhead and slide your left hand down your left leg. You can then start to point your left toes down towards the floor. And keep opening your right ribs to the ceiling. And keep lengthening your left side as you keep the press in your right knee. Inhale, come back up. And exhale, keep the leg shape. Just take your right hand to the floor now. Maybe you need a block under your right hand. Now I would suggest taking your left foot flat on the floor and pointing your left toes forward. Keep pressing your right hip forward and opening your left hip to the ceiling. Nice big stretch on the left side of your body. And then inhale, push back up. Take your hands back down to the floor and come back into tabletop pose. Round out your spine on your fingertips, press the floor away. And again, gather your breath in and out of your nose. Dropping the tailbone, dropping your chin. Good. Now take your right foot out to the side. Come up to kneeling on your left knee and right heel. Inhale, reach your arms. You're going to exhale, split your right hand down to your right leg. And left arm overhead. And again here, keep pushing your left hip forward. Opening your left ribs up to the ceiling. You can slide your right hand down, your right shin, maybe even point your right toes down to the floor. And then on your next inhale, lift back up and go the other way. Exhale, left hand to the floor, maybe a block, but push your left hip forward. Try not to let your left hip fall back. And then open your right ribs, open your right arm overhead. Turn your right toes to point forward now so you can press the sole of your right foot down. And on your next inhale, come back up. Reach your arms. And exhale, place your hands back to the floor. Pull your right knee back over into tabletop. Fingertips to the floor again, and lift your back as you exhale, round. Keep the rounding as you inhale and exhale. All right, downward facing dog. Walk your hands forward, lift up your hips, lift up your knees. Press your hips up and back, open your chest. You can lift your heels, you can bend your knees here if that helps to create more space. And then also consider, what you can do to create a better foundation. So feel stronger in your hands and feet. Ujjayi breath is a nice pranayama to incorporate here in downward facing dog. All right, you're going to walk forward. Take your feet up to your hands and forward fold. Exhale. You can use your hands wherever they feel good. And then that same Ujjayi breath can come back in here. So it's that soft hushing sound in the back of your throat, like you're whispering as you breathe. And it can be just the exhale or both inhale and exhale. And then just a few rounds of a half lift. So we're going to take hands to the floor. And on your next inhale, lift your back, lengthen out halfway. And then exhale, fold, Uttanasana. Again, inhale, lift and lengthen. Maybe use blocks under your hands here. And exhale, fold, Uttanasana. One more. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold, Uttanasana. And then we're going to come all the way up to stand on your next inhale. Sweep all the way up, Urdhva Hastasana. You can reach your arms up to the ceiling. Samastitihi, standing pose, release your arms. We're going to grab a block here. And you're going to put the block between your thigh bones, lengthwise running through your legs. So you're squeezing the skinniest side of your block. I don't know if you can really see here because the block kind of blends in with my pants, but it's also flush with my thighs. It's not sticking out in the front. The block is sticking out in the back. Your feet are about hips width or wider. Squeeze the block with your thigh bones and then reach your arms up and push down into your heels. Forward fold as you exhale. Keep squeezing the block. It's almost like you can shoot the block out behind you. Keep the squeeze of the block as you're folding here and try to press the weight forward into the fronts of your feet more rather than your heels. So not that your heels are lifting, but there's more weight in the balls of your feet. And keep squeezing that block with your thigh bones. We're going to come back into plank pose, so you can just kind of, skip back, hop back, but keep the block squeezed in plank. Open your chest through your shoulders and just really feel how active your legs need to be here. Chaturanga, you can take your knees down or go straight leg. Keep squeezing the block and then inhale, cobra or upward facing dog. Keep squeezing that block with your thigh bones. Exhale up and back, downward facing dog, still squeezing the block. Again, it's almost like you can shoot the block out behind you up towards the ceiling. And no rounding when you do this. So try not to round your back and drop your tailbone. Keep that breath moving. Again, you can incorporate that Ujjayi, especially here in down dog. It's nice to do. It's soothing, it's calming, and it's centering. Come into plank pose, and then we're going to turn over to side plank. So the top leg will probably be floating. And also you could bend your top knee and take the foot to the floor behind you, but without letting your top hip roll behind. So keep the knee forward and the hip forward. So if your left toes are coming to the floor, it's not so far back that you roll your hips open. You could also keep the legs straight and just let that left leg float, but you're squeezing the block. Plank pose as you inhale. We'll just take a moment then in downward facing dog, press up and back, Adho Mukha Svanasana. You can always take child's pose if you prefer before moving on to the second side plank. Pause the video if you need more time before second side. If you're ready, come forward into plank and then roll over to the left foot. Really lift that left ankle, so try not to squeeze the block so hard that you're pushing the left ankle bone down into the floor, especially the outer ankle. And then again, your right toes can come behind without pulling your right hip back. Keep pressing down into your left hand and keep reaching up with your right hand. If your right leg is staying straight, parallel over your left, you're squeezing the right thigh so much that the right leg is straight. And the right leg doesn't really have to hold itself up in space. The squeezing of the block is holding it up. And then plank pose. And again, exhale, downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Strong thighs, squeeze the block. If you had to resituate the block, that's fine. Take some time to do that. Press out with your hands, and then you can step your feet forward or hop up, squeezing the block. Forward fold, Uttanasana. Inhale all the way up, Urdhva Hastasana. Keep that squeeze of the thighs, and then release your hands. Exhale, Samastitihi. All right, you can set the block aside now. And then we're going to step wide into a wide leg forward fold. So a couple different options here. The first one I'm going to show you is Prasarita Padottanasana C with your hands behind your back. So you can inhale, open your arms, and then exhale, take your hands behind, interlace your fingers. Take an inhale before you fold to prepare, and then on your exhale, you can fold down, pressing down into your feet. Fingers are interlaced. You're softening your upper back and letting your arms fall down towards the floor. And so if you're finding that this is really hard for your shoulders to have the hands stay together, we can use a strap instead. So if you want to use a yoga belt or a tie or anything that you've got handy, you're going to take it between your hands, and then we're going to take it behind the back. Actually, it's better if you just take it behind your back and catch your hand, catch the belt. You can definitely, right here, I've got my hands twisted. I'm going to forward fold and it feels really awkward. So I'm actually going to fix this strap, re-grip it the other way. And then it's like you can break the strap apart. There you go. Thumbs up to the ceiling is better. So when you're upstanding, if you grab the belt behind you and the thumbs are, you can floss behind you. That's fun. Do a little dance. Ugh. And then your thumbs are facing down. Then when you forward fold, your thumbs will be up and you're taking the thumbs overhead towards the floor. And so here you can, I like this a lot because I like to twist. So you can twist open to one side, still imagining you're breaking the belt apart with your hands. And it's just kind of a rolling open twist. And then go to the other side, roll to your left thigh and roll your right ribs open. Keep breaking the strap with your hands. And then exhale back into the fold. And you can either take your hands closer or farther. So maybe they need to be farther apart, or maybe you need to walk your hands a little closer together to start to inch your way closer to that mudrasana. And only do what feels good to your body. Only do what feels good to your shoulders. But keep pressing down into your legs, down into your feet, and then inhale, rise when you're ready. Come up to stand. Right, you can set the belt aside. We're going to move into goddess squat, bending your knees as you turn your heels in and your toes out. And you're going to squat right above knee height. So you're not squatting down to knee height. Push down into your heels and open your chest. So you can stay in the upright position. You can lean on your thighs with your hands or elbows. And you could also start to reach down for your ankles. I'm going to scooch my feet in a little closer. I felt they were too far apart. Now my shins feel more vertical, more up and down. Really pull your belly button up so that your belly's not sagging down to the floor. And then if you're reaching down for your ankles, pull your chest through your shoulders and pull your ankles back with your hands. There's a little resistance there to get some length in your torso. And then if you want to try again, coming up to standing, open your chest up, lift your hips a little higher than your knees. You can open your arms. Bend your elbows like goalpost arms. Okay, and then we're going to straighten the legs and take this into Trikonasana. Turn the right toes to point forward and turn your left toes to angle in. Right leg is straight, right hand down to your right foot or right shin, your left arm up to the ceiling. Imagine, even though your legs are further apart and you don't have a block here, just imagine there's still a squeeze with your thighs in like you're squeezing a block. And then the same thing with your front hip bones. It's like you're squeezing a block between your hips. And then lengthening your chest away from your pubic bone. Stretch your spine taller using your back muscles to press the spine taller. Press down to stand up, switch sides, left toes turn, right foot angles in, and slide your left hand down, your left shin, right arm up to the ceiling. Again, get that squeeze in your hips, low belly, and the thighs. Push firmly into your feet equally, and then really twist open and long so you're lengthening away from your hips with your shoulders, with your chest. So your shoulders aren't pulling, They're opening, they're spacious. There's a lengthening happening, not a squeeze or a contraction. And then you're going to come up to stand, push down into those feet to inhale, lift up to stand, step back up to the top of your mat, Samastiti. Take your time here if you need a few extra rounds of breath just to find your balance. Inhale, reach your arms, Urdhva Hastasana. Exhale, forward fold, Uttanasana. Taking a half lift here for a shoot back. You can step back into plank pose. You can also skip the chaturanga if it's not making sense in your practice today. If you are taking chaturanga, inhale into a back bend, cobra or upward facing dog. And then exhale, Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. And then again, smooth your breath out here. And take your time. Pace this practice out to suit your needs. So if you need to pause this video, move slower or faster, please do. All right, come all the way down to the belly. And you're going to take your hands and point your fingertips toward each other so your elbows bend away from each other. And then I'm going to pull my left knee up to my left finger and just kind of twist and look back at my left knee. And straighten your left leg back. Pull your right knee up to your right pinky finger or your right thumb, whatever it is, thumb I think, and then stretch it back. Keep your hands just as they are. Inhale into an up dog or cobra shape, rather, cobra. Keep your thighs on the floor. And then tuck your toes and lift up and push back into downward facing dog with your fingers pointing to each other. You're going to feel less weight on the pinky side of your hand and more on the heel thumb side of your hand. So let that be the thing. Push out through your hands and then lower your knees down. Come back to your belly. Okay, now we're going to switch. I'm going to take the hands back, and then we're actually going to take the hands out. So fingers point away from each other. And then we're going to pull that left knee up to the left pinky and back. Right knee, right pinky, and you can look back to your right knee. And then take your right foot back. Here again, inhale, pull your chest through so you're not shoving your elbows forward. You're pulling your elbows back as you're pushing with your hands. And then come up and back, Adho Mukha Svanasana with your fingers pointing out away from each other. So you don't want to hyperextend your arms. Keep a soft bend in your elbows. And just a couple breaths here, just to feel it. You know, if your hands start to slip, if you're starting to experience pain, come out of it. It's just for a few moments to feel this different shape, or how the shape changes because of your hand placement. Okay, and then come all the way back down to your belly. Hands come around behind your back. I'm going to grab that block and I'm going to take it back between the thigh bones, just as we did in a standing pose, and squeeze the thighs, squeeze the block, lift your chest. You can interlace your fingers here and lift your thumbs up away from the block. Press back with your feet, squeeze that block, and lift your chest, lift your throat, lift your forehead, lift your chin. And then I'm going to take the block in between my hands just to switch it up a little bit and squeeze with my hands. There we go. Now my hands are getting a little higher. And just a little way to learn the biomechanics required for that massive lift. And then release and lower down, set the block aside, and just rest for a few moments. All right, take your hands back to the floor so that you can press back up. Come up to kneeling for Ustrasana. I'm going to grab a block again, and I'm going to take the block off to my left side first. I'm going to put it on its tallest height, and I'm going to put it back by my left ankle. I'm leaning into my left hand and leaning off to the left. So it's a twisting, a very, very slight twisting camel pose. So my right side is stretching up to the ceiling, and my left side is working. You should feel your left ribs working, your left side muscles working. After a moment there, then you can lower the block down and keep that left hip from moving over your left knee, and then also keep it from moving behind over your calf. So keep it right directly on top of your left knee. Inhale, come back up, switch sides. Take the block to your right ankle. It's on its tallest height. You're going to push your right hand down into the block, and then your left arm up to the ceiling, and then you're going to stretch out over. So the left side is stretching long and my right side is working. I can feel the right side core and rib muscles working. And I'm pushing down into my right knee so that my right hip is not moving forward or back. It's staying directly on top of the knee. And then flip that block down to its second height And see how that slight little shift in height makes a difference. I'm cupping the back of my head here with my left hand. Sometimes it's nice to have that so your head and neck don't get tired. And then inhale, come back up. All right, and then we'll take Ustrasana camel pose. I'm going to take my knees far apart. I'm actually going to take the block in between my knees here, and I'm going to turn so you can see the block is going to be on its long side. So I'm squeezing the two short ends of the block, not the skinny side. This is too narrow. It's the same size as my hips, but I don't want that for now. I want a wider knee because this is going to make your back bend easier and it's going to make it feel better. You can crawl around with the block between your knees for fun, I guess, whatever. Okay, so from here, this is also going to keep my hips from moving too far forward to try to alleviate pinching in my low back. So I guess you decide what you want. Do you want pain in your low back and Iyengar style yoga where your knees are directly aligned under your hips and they're 3 inches apart and they're just how a textbook says they should be? Or do you want to feel the back bend without pain in your back? Move your knees apart, open your hips, give your body space. You can breathe here more, and now you can focus on your neck. So now I'm going to take my chest up to the ceiling. I'm going to take my head back and squeeze my shoulder blades with my head. So it's almost like there's a block here between my head and shoulder blades. And then push down to come up. Knees farther apart gives you so much more control, and you can actually breathe. Now move the block back under your sit bones and sit down on the block for Virasana. Catch your breath here. Reach your arms up, inhale. And then take eagle arms, right arm under your left arm. Press back down into the sit bones on the block. Pull your front ribs back in. Lift your elbows as high as your shoulders and press your thumbs away from your forehead so that your forearms are vertical and your upper arms are horizontal. Feel the upper back stretch. Hug your shoulders, drop your elbows to your belly, and bow. Good. And then inhale, reach up and let that go. Switch sides. Left arm under the right. Lift your elbows as high as your shoulders. Press your thumbs away from your forehead. Zip your ribs back in. Feel the weight shift back down into the block from your sit bones. And feel the stretch here around the upper shoulder area, around the shoulder blades. And then you're going to hug your shoulders with your hands. Drop your elbows, drop your forehead, round your spine, little hug. And then inhale, open up nice and tall, stretch up. Exhale, come out of this, take the block out of the way, and come over to hands and knees. Downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Just take a few rounds of breath here to feel your low back release and extend. Feel your hips really high. They get really tall. They get really floaty. All right foot steps forward. Keep your left heel lifted for high lunge. Bend your right knee forward over your ankle and lift your arms up to the ceiling. Lift your chest up to the ceiling. Squeeze your left thigh to lift your left knee and lift that left heel even higher. Gaze can go up to your fingers, or you can keep your eyes just right out towards the floor or down out into the front of the room. And then you're going to step forward into standing pose, Tadasana. Wrap your right arm under your left arm, eagle arms. Then bend your knees, and you can stay here in chair with eagle. Or you can wrap your right leg over your left leg and take the legs in eagle. Squat down towards your left heel. Make sure that your left knee is not turning over to the right side of the room. So it's going straight forward. And imagine here you're squeezing a block between the backs of your legs, like between your sit bones and your right heel. Good. Stand, release. And then we'll move this into Warrior 3, Virabhadrasana C. I'm going to take hands to hips, and then I'm going to start to float my left leg up. And so the left leg just comes back a little bit on the floor, and then I lift it up. Press back through your left foot, squeeze your left glutes and hamstrings, and press down into your right foot. You can take your arms forward. If your arms go forward, probably your right hip is going to shift back a little farther behind your right heel, so there's a little bit of an angle in your right leg. You can look forward, or you can look down. Okay, land back on your left big toe, then your left heel is down now for warrior one. Press through the outer edge of your left foot and lift your inner left thigh. Bend your right knee way over that right ankle. And lift your chest up to the ceiling. One more big breath, and then exhale, hands down. Step back, downward facing dog. Take that exhale into an inhale right into plank pose. Exhale, chaturanga. Inhale, Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. Exhale, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Child's pose is always welcome, so you can pause here for a moment or two in child's pose. Lengthen that low back. Lengthen your thighs. Lengthen your legs. Get taller everywhere. All right, and then your left foot will step forward, high lunge, Ashtha Chandrasana. All right, bend your left knee deep over your left ankle. Right heel stays lifted. And lift that right heel. Lift that right heel up super tall. Drop your hips evenly. Lift your chest. Just a little balancing here. This is a good prep for the next two balancing postures because high lunge is a balancing pose, but both feet are still on the floor. So right here, notice what has to happen for your balance, core. And then step forward, engage your core, not over engaging. We're going to take the eagle arm, so left arm under your right arm first to start. And then again, you can bend your knees and go into that chair pose if you'd like, and settle into Utkatasana with eagle arms. Or you can wrap the left leg then over your right knee and add in the leg. So it's nice to start in chair and then wrap the left leg. And then if you're feeling wobbly, notice why you're feeling wobbly. So is it your right foot? Do you need to step down on your left foot? Do you need to unwrap your left leg? Maybe you need to go back to chair on this side. Then once you figure it out, remember that block squeezing between your thighs. Squeeze the block between your thighs, even though it's not there. Because that's going to help in either variation, whether you're in eagle legs or chair. And you're going to unwrap and press to stand, Samastitihi. Again, remember what it took for balance. It's that core and back. So it's the back muscles and the front belly core muscles. Now stepping back with my right foot, I'm getting my left leg ready to balance. So I'm going to lift from my right glutes, but don't forget the right thigh has to work to press your right foot to your right knee to straight. So it's not just the hamstrings and glutes, it's also the right quads. If you get wobbly, bend your left knee and sink a little lower to the floor. That helps. Remember to let your left hip kind of teeter back a little bit over your heel. Arms can go forward, gaze can go down, arms can go out to the side. Okay, and then land down on your right big toe, right heel. Lift your chest up, warrior one, Virabhadrasana A. Seal down into that outer right foot. Drop your hips evenly and really bend that left knee right over that left ankle. Open your heart, press your arms up. Just one more big breath here. And then exhale, hands to the floor and step back, downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Next inhale, glide forward, plank pose. Chaturanga, exhale. Inhale, upward facing dog or cobra. And exhale, Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. Take a moment here, catch your breath. Child's pose is there too. All right, so we're going to come to seated, and you can lower your knees down when you're ready and come to a seated position comfortably. We're going to set up for a twist. So straighten your left leg out. Hook your right foot over the outside of your left leg. Lift up, inhale, hug your right knee, and then as you exhale, keep this lift in your chest, and then twist to your right. Let your left elbow hug or hook your right knee, and then your right hand comes back to the floor behind you. And so with my fingertips on the floor, I can feel my right shoulder is slightly higher than my left shoulder. And I'm going to level that out here in a moment. I'm going to put my right hand flat on the floor. A block is actually a really good idea. So when I drop my right hand down on the floor, I actually turn my hand and point towards my hips. And then I lean back at a little angle. But when you lean back at this angle, my shoulders are level, and that's great. But now my right hip is falling back. So I've got to push that right hip forward. To do that, I'm squeezing my left knee with my right ankle. Okay, release on your inhale. And gonna hug both knees into my chest and fall back into a little bit of a seated Apanasana. Okay, let's straighten out the right leg and hook your left leg on the outside of your right thigh. Again, your right arm is going to hook or hug your left thigh, and then your right hand can come, or your left hand can come back behind you. So first, if you want that little lift, inhale, open your chest. Keep that length in your spine when you twist. So that reminds you not to forward fold in your twist and not to slouch. Lift that chest back up just like you were lifting up to the ceiling. And then again here, I can feel my left shoulder is slightly higher than my right shoulder. So I'm going to walk that left hand flat in a moment. But first, I'm just going to let the shape happen in my body. When I do flatten out that left hand, though, I notice that my left hip comes back. So when I flatten out my left hand and then I turn the fingers to face me, I can lean back into that left elbow, but that left hip is pushing forward. And in order to do that, I'm pressing into my left ankle with my right thigh and pressing back into the thigh with my left ankle. And push down to the floor with your left foot. Bend the left elbow back and pull your shoulder blades smooth on your back. Just intensifies the twist without binding and doing stupid things. Okay, inhale, release this. Take the soles of your feet back up to the floor and heels in. And then again, that seated Apanasana, fall back into a little rounding. And then we're going to move this into a bound angle. I'm taking a wider bound angle. This just feels better for my hips. My feet are a little farther away than they typically would be. And I'm just going to let my head rest on my feet or get a block or a bolster blanket to support your forehead. I'm not forcing my knees down here. I'm just letting them fall open. And I'm just letting my back relax from that twist. You should feel a nice gentle stretch on your inner thigh, nothing too crazy. Letting the breath move right up into your back so you can feel the breath massaging your back and stretching those back muscles out. All right, then I'm going to move down into a reclining position for shoulder stand. So if you want to take legs up in the air, a couple blocks under your hips, modify this. Otherwise, elbows are going to support your body on the floor, hands on your back, press your feet up to the ceiling and squeeze your thighs. Neck is in line, so the neck is long, chin is in line with your chest. And for me, I can usually get there a few moments and then I can feel my elbows sliding apart. So I needed to walk my elbows in. So I'm just going to resituate, walk my elbows in, walk my hands up higher, and really activate those thighs. I'm going to take this into bound angle, soles of the feet together, knees apart. And you can stay here or you can take your toes down overhead and your toes can come to the floor in bound angle, knees around the ears. This is like Karnapidasana. Or you could take your toes up like almost like crane and you can feel that action. All right, and then I want to take this into actual plow pose. So just a few different options for you. Take your feet down to the floor, stretch out your legs, squeeze your thighs. Let your shoulders and your hips stay in line though. So don't let your hips move back over your face or let them fall back over your elbows. Keep pushing down into the floor with your hands or your elbows if they're on the floor or your wrists if your hands are interlaced. And try to soften your abdominals here. They're probably working, and if they're cramping, we're going to move into bridge pose next. So roll down onto the floor, stretch your arms above head, stretch out your abdominal muscles. They can get a little tired from that. And then heels on the floor. Again, feet wider apart than they typically would be because, again, we want to go for the stretch. It doesn't matter how close your feet are here. In fact, if they're too close, it's going to feel awful. So stretch your feet apart, walk them farther apart off to the edge of your mat, and really press those hips up to the ceiling. Get the space in your body, not the space between your knees like a book tells you to have, right? Feel what should be happening in your body. And then lower down slowly, release your arms first, roll down to your hips. And just a big breath here, just a moment to let your back relax before we come up to seated. And then when you do come up to seated, we're going to come back to that starting position into ankles crossed. Just take a moment, feel the weight falling evenly into the two sit bones, and then we're going to take a side bend just like we did at the beginning. But first, just take a few moments here to feel centered, to feel your head stack over your hips, your shoulders over your hips, the back of your head over the back of your pelvis. Walk your right hand over to the right and then stretch your left arm overhead and exhale. Lean out over your right side. And then inhale, come back up. Pause in the center. Feel the weight drop evenly into both of those sitting bones, and then take your left hand out to the side and lean down into that left hand. Open your right side up to the ceiling. So again, stretching out over and opening up. All right, then come back up to seated. Again, let that weight fall evenly into the ground. Twist to your right, left hand to right thigh. Open your chest. Use your right hand behind to help remind your chest to stay open and not collapse. And then untwist. Stop in the middle for a moment and then switch sides. Left hand behind, right hand to left thigh. And twist. All right, then come back into center. And take your right leg out straight. Keep your left heel up into the center of your groin there. And then forward fold out over your left foot. Press out through your right foot. Rest on your elbows. Keep your chest open. I'm going to roll over to my right side and just kind of unwind into a side bend here. And then come back up to seated. So it was just a little detour on the way up to seated. Now left leg out straight, right knee bent, heel right up into the center of your groin, and then stretch out over your right ankle. Elbows to the floor, press out through your left foot. And again, just a couple rounds of breath here before we roll off into the side. And then go ahead and just kind of lean off to your left side and roll your right ribs open. You can take your right arm overhead if you'd like. And then inhale back up to seated. Okay, and then we're going to come back over into hands and knees so we can set up for headstand Shirshasana. If you're not going to take headstand, you can always take legs up in the air back on the block. You can go to the wall. And take a moment in child's pose first just to ground in this downward facing position and get my neck and shoulders ready. It's also a nice moment just to calm. Transitioning from a seated to downward facing. Maybe takes a minute to prepare. When you're ready, get your hands set up, interlace your fingers, cup the back of your head, press your elbows down into the floor. And then you can stay in this tabletop with headstand setup, or you can move to downward facing dog with headstand setup. So it's elbow dog. You can lift one foot to the ceiling. Maybe you float both legs up to the ceiling. Maybe it's just a simple knees to chest and getting the feet off the floor. And we'll be here for just a few rounds of breath. Breathing from your belly, in and out of your nose, pumping the belly in and out, expanding your ribs, expanding your heart. And then really press up through your feet. Squeeze your thighs like you've got that block between your thighs again here. Hug the thigh bones around that block, imaginary block. And if you've got one, you might come down and try to go back up with a block between your thighs and see if that helps with balance and leg activation. Press your toes up to the ceiling here. Push down into your elbows. Keep pressing down into your elbows and press into your head so you're not just letting the weight drop into your neck. So your neck muscles are active, pushing the floor away, not just collapsing and taking the weight. And just a few more rounds of breath here. If you're already out of it, you can rest in child's pose. If you want to take longer in this, please just let the video work its way out and finish your practice with headstand and then coming into the child's pose. And then basically it's just basically we're just going into rest from here. So you can finish your practice out from here if you'd like. And then on your next exhale, start to hinge at the hips and let your feet come down to the floor slowly. Knees to the floor next, and then hips to your heels. Child's pose, Balasana. Take a few moments to let that all settle. And so we're going to transition back up to seated. So the same thing applies. Transitioning back up to seated may take a few moments. So please ground first. And then when you're ready, you can take your hands to the floor and come up, let your head come up last. Reposition yourself again in that easy seated position and just take a moment here to sit and feel the energy in your body. You can place one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly, and just feel the breath moving between these two areas, around these two areas, and beyond these two areas. Smooth that breath in and out of your nose. And take a moment here and just bow to your practice. Thank yourself for all of your efforts, for all that you do here and everywhere. And then please take a few moments to end your practice with relaxation. Take as long as you've got to give and let your body relax before coming back up to seated. All right, good job, yogis. Thank you.